All right, it looks like we are good to go here. I have Sandy Belknap who's monitoring the Facebook page to make sure everything's working. So we're ready to go. So good evening, everybody. I am here with four of our six Ward 4 state representative candidates. And all the candidates see and hear me? No? You guys got to get your mutes on. We'll get that little balance on.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, everybody.
All right. So the first part of this is we're going to try to have everybody introduce themselves. We have a series of questions. And then once we are ready to go and we have everybody's had a chance to introduce themselves, we'll ask questions which everybody was given in advance to prepare themselves. So without further ado, let's kick this forum off. You're going to have 2 minutes each, and I'll try to give you a heads up as you start to run into a deadline. I had planned video cues. We'll see if those work. I just want to make sure you guys know that you will have that heads up at like the 30-second mark. Starting out first, we have Manny Espitia, who is our current one of our current state representatives. Manny, if you'd like to unmute yourself and give us a 2-minute description of yourself.
Sure. So my name is Manny Espitia. I currently serve as a state representative here in Ward 4. Full-time, I work as a Northern Regional Director for an organization called Run for Something. We help Democratic candidates run for local and state office nationwide. But in terms of being a state representative, I serve on the Labor Committee, Labor, Industrial, and Rehabilitative Services Committee. It is, I serve as the clerk of the committee, and basically anything from workers' comp to issues like collective bargaining, to minimum wage or paid family medical leave or anything like that comes before my committee. I also, I live here in right off of Lake and Chestnut. I've lived in Nashua for the last 5 years actually, and it's been an honor and pleasure to be here. It's been an honor to serve as your state representative. I'm looking to hopefully work hard to continue the work to put workers first, especially working class families, because we have to make sure that we raise our minimum wage, that we enact the paid family and medical leave, and that we also have safe working conditions, especially during the pandemic. So I'm happy to be here, happy to have this conversation with y'all, and I'm looking forward to the next hour.
All right, thank you very much, Manny. Let's see who we have next. Next up, we have Elizabeth. You'd like to just introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Well, good evening, folks. My name is Elizabeth Van Twyver. I was born in Quincy, Massachusetts, the day President Roosevelt died, my only claim to fame, and I'm one of 6 children. I graduated from Melbourne High School, Florida, Cocoa Community College with an associate's degree, and a Bachelor of Science degree in computer science from Florida Atlantic University. I've worked part-time as a travel agent at Crimson Travel in the mall. I've had my own travel agency called Great Expectations. I worked 40 years in the computer industry, Digital Equipment Corporation, Wang Labs, Compaq, Hewlett Packard, and others as a software engineer, a technical writer, and a course developer. Served 8 years on the Nashua Board of Education, just completed that last year. I served as the board clerk, the chair of the policy and curriculum committees. I've tutored students at the Adult Education Center, Dr. Crisp, and Amherst Elementary Schools, and I'm now assisting one of the ladies that I tutored to become study for her citizenship, which I'm very, very proud of. I've been past president of the Nashua Garden Club, past president of Club, Council, and Region of International Training and Communication, which was formerly known as International Toastmasters Clubs. And I volunteered with Habitat for Humanity. I consider myself a lifelong learner. I love to travel and read and garden. I have quite many years of work experience that I think I can bring to this position, particularly with a company that demanded excellence, and that's what I'd like to see brought to our education, to bring it back to the standards that we had when I was growing up. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Liz.
No, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. I'm sorry. I keep making that mistake.
Yeah, well, most people do, but I really do prefer Elizabeth.
Okay. Well, thanks for making sure. Next up, we have Stacy Lawton.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Well, I'm Stacy Lawton. I'm 36 years old. I've been involved in civic involvement just about my entire adult life. I volunteer with many different community organizations. Some of my most favorite ones are the Salvation Army. I also really enjoy working with the Gate City Community Gardens, and I did go to college. I went to college for culinary arts at the old Atlantic Culinary Academy and at the old McIntosh College. And I did drop out from that and immediately started getting involved in public service when I was 21, when I first ran for office. And I've worked in retail most of my life, and recently I've been getting into DJing and podcasting and live streaming. And it's kind of a side gig from last year. I started going live with Stacy Lawton, where we would live stream political candidates. And I have quite the history in Nashua and in the state. And I'm honored to be given a second chance to be able to run for a state rep. And I'm honored to be currently serving as a selectman in the city of Nashua, which is an election day position, and not to be confused with alderman. And I see myself as a lifelong community servant, and that's how I see myself serving in the state legislature.
All right. Thank you very much, Stacy. And finally, we have Ryan Terrell. Ryan, if you'd like to begin your introduction.
Hey, good evening, everybody. And thank you to Manny, Elizabeth, and Stacy for joining and having this forum and having everybody meet. This is great, especially in these times where we can't really get in front of voters. My name is Ryan Terrell. I moved into New Hampshire in 2011. I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. I like to tell people that I am New Orleans hardware and New Hampshire software at this point. I've been here and I love the great New Hampshire. I came here as a scholarship to Southern New Hampshire University. There was an experiential learning program called College Unbound, and I got a scholarship. That's what caused me to move. And after I graduated, I stuck around. Throughout college, I had public and private sector internships. I helped to raise over $50,000 for family in transition as a part of my college projects. And then also I helped mobilize voters throughout the college election years to make sure that voters could get out and vote in their state and local elections. Throughout my time in school and even after I've graduated, I've joined a Leadership Greater Manchester program that basically allows us to learn more about what's happening at the state and local level in all forms of our government in our state. I've also, in a private sector, I'm a project manager at a hair care distribution company, where my job is to make sure that all of our systems are updated and modern, and to make sure that our sales and operations are in alignment. As a piece of that role, I also founded a textured hair care brand that's made to increase diversity in the salon professional industry called Tribe Hair Care. And as of recently, a few people may recognize my name from being nominated for the State Board of Education and some of the political actions that kind of went back and forth due to that process. I look forward to talking about some of the issues today and hearing from some of the other candidates. And I'm looking forward to talking to the voters about why I believe that I can be elected and represent them well as a state representative.
All right, thank you very much, Ryan. Kind of neglected because I'm doing all these technological things over here to introduce myself. My name is Tom Lopez. I'm Alderman for Ward 4. I am not up for re-election this year, so that's a relief. And it means that I have a little bit more bandwidth to help people who are on either side of the aisle. So I have always believed that being alderman should be a nonpartisan position, and I'm glad to host people from both the Republican and Democrat sides of the aisle in their bids for re-election. I think what's most important is who you are and what you bring to the people of Ward 4. And then as elected representatives, it is what's most important to us is, you know, how we can best represent the needs of our communities. And I know we're all here to do that. Some quick updates to the format. It looks like Zoom is not making the most impressive use of my PowerPoint presentation. So I'm gonna read the questions as we go instead of posting them up. And then it will be the same format. It'll be the same amount of time. All of the candidates did get copies of the questions ahead of time, so there won't be any surprises or anything. Just for our viewing audience, all they're getting is like a blue screenshot with white. Then it looks like we're playing like a lame version of Jeopardy. So I just wanted to let you guys know that that format will be adapting a little bit. So our first question, basically the procedure is going to be, I'll ask the question, and then I will introduce the order of people that are reading it. And then as we go through it, we can, the individuals can speak their piece. If they start to get to the 2.5 minute mark, or if they're within 36 of ending, you're gonna hear my name and my voice in the background saying time, just so that you know you have 30 seconds left, because I don't want you to have to end the thought, you know, on a dime. And then we'll go through it each one. And if you all have copies of the questions that I sent, I would definitely encourage you to have them out. I'm pretty confident you do. I see Liz. But if you do need the question repeated, then just feel free to ask me, and I will pause the timer and then do that part. So if there are no other questions, then from the participants, I'll ask the first question. And the first person answering this will be Liz, followed by Ryan, Stacy, and then Manny. And the question is, how do you see your role in the state legislature in providing oversight and/or support for gubernatorial initiatives? Give an example that you wish to support and one that you think needs to change. So Liz, we're gonna start out with you. Liz, you're on mute.
Thank you. I have to remember to do that.
It's 2020.
I seem to have my questions backwards or something. Anyways, I'm going to Concord with an open mind and will listen to all debate before making up my mind on how to vote on an issue. And I will confer with my constituents on their opinions. I cannot blindly commit myself to any issue before hearing the details of the issue and the potential unintended consequences of implementation. So I will tell you that I will support gubernatorial initiatives that make sense for our state and will vote against those that do not. I can tell you that my interest is with education and reasonable budgets. I am a conservative, constitutionalist, and will always vote to support fair and equitable funding for both education and other state services. I believe that the times we are living through today has shown us that we need to pay attention to our basic needs, not the special interests of those with the power. If you agree with these thoughts, then vote for me and put me in the State House, where I will do all in my power to implement such laws. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And I know I did that again, so I apologize.
It's all right. You're forgiven.
Ryan, you are up next.
Yeah, thank you. So what is my role in gubernatorial oversight and helping gubernatorial initiatives I believe first that Governor Sununu has provided some very good leadership throughout the pandemic and provided us a path forward to keep New Hampshire as one of the least infected states while remaining one of the least restrictive states throughout the pandemic. And what we can see is that our economy is also trying to make a rebound, and that's largely due to the direction that Governor Chris Sununu is taking us. So in terms of my responsibility in gubernatorial oversight or helping gubernatorial initiatives, one of the biggest things that I'm looking forward to help Governor Sununu with is creating and delivering the voluntary paid family leave program. This is going to be very important for our workers and for working class families to make sure that they can have something that workplaces can offer them so that they can get back home and be with their families, especially in this time of need and as a workplace benefit. It's important that this program is voluntary so that it doesn't encumber businesses in a time where businesses are going to be having a lot of shortfalls, especially because of the revenue loss during COVID-19. Some of the other initiatives that I definitely help Governor Sununu support is to continue to create some of those funds like the Gopher Fund and also the Main Street Initiative that helps our businesses and workers get back to work safely, but more importantly, give them a cushion, especially as we go back into the flu season and into winter. And when you look at some of the other legislation, it's really going to be about making sure that we manage our budget appropriately. We're going to have a very large revenue loss. And so any initiatives that allow us to work with the budget and remain fiscally conservative and also make sure that we still take care of the most important programs are going to be the top priorities for supporting gubernatorial initiatives. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ryan. Next up is Stacy. Do you need the question
Yes.
repeated? You have your list ready?
I have it right here.
Okay. I'm just going to check in at the halfway point for any of the participants, just because you're going to go through 6 minutes of waiting for other people talking. And just so that you all know, in lieu of the posted questions that we're supposed to be streaming during this, Sandy Belknap is posting them in Facebook for us. So Stacy, you are a go.
Yes. Well, I see myself supporting some gubernatorial initiatives, but I'm also a very independent-minded thinker, and I'm willing to work across party lines to, figure out the best solutions. And I'm always going to be in constant communication with constituents to see what their thoughts are and what they would want, because this is we are citizen representatives, and I can't say specifically any of the governor's initiatives that he's working on right now that I would be for or against, but I do say that I'm willing to challenge the governor from time to time if it calls for it, because sometimes some of his positions on some of the issues that we have and that we're facing, I'm completely opposite with him on. And so I'm willing to publicly challenge the governor from time to time if necessary. And it doesn't matter if the governor would be Governor Sununu or if it's the Democratic candidate. We as the legislator have a job to do, and it's not always going to be in line with the governor sometimes.
All right. Very interesting. Any further thoughts? Stacy?
No.
Okay. So last up, we got Manny. Manny, how would you like to answer this particular question?
So for those of you who don't know, the House creates their own budget. They have the House budget. There's also the governor's budget. So we have a chance to, talk to fill in for to come up with what we think our constituents need. And also, Ryan is correct that we are definitely going to be facing a budget shortfall next year. So I think with that in mind, we definitely have to know what are some of the issues that are really at the top of our priority list. But I want to make sure that we craft a budget that provides for all people of New Hampshire and not just for those at the top. our ward typically is one of those wards that typically gets forgotten. So I want to make sure that that we don't, that we don't miss the mark for our ward, that we hit that we have things like equitable funding for our ward for education, because that's typically something that gets left out for us. The other thing is, I think the governor has done his own initiatives. I know he had an initiative on housing, for example, and I think I'm happy to hear that that's a priority, but I think it hasn't shown, it's shown that our Nashua is still reeling from that we have, that our vacancy rate here in the city is abysmal. I, as somebody who is going through the homeowner process, and seeing it firsthand, it is incredibly daunting that the houses that it's rare to find a house that goes for sale, and when it does, it gets immediately picked up. And typically you can't get it at that price that it's listed. So most of it, same goes for renters. There's a rental property available, it gets snatched up really quickly. And so that allows for the prices of rentals to go up. So we're seeing issues with homelessness in our state. We are seeing issues where the moratorium on evictions has been lifted. So a lot of our constituents are having to decide, am I gonna eat, or am I gonna have to pay for rent? Or am I and that is not a decision that people, or should I be paying for my medicine, or should I be paying for my rent? That's not a decision I want people to be facing. So that's something I'm working on. I'm trying to make it so things like first-time home buyers can have a chance to have an equitable chance to actually get some of these houses and try to fulfill their American dream. So yeah, those are the ways, and voting is, I think, when we have a chance to do vetoes. I know that one of our veto overrides that we had was on the death penalty, and we overrode that by 1 vote. So I think, while there are 400 of us, there are still, our voices can be heard, and they can be heard loudly.
All right. Some very good answers all around. Moving on to our next question. This one is another 3 minutes each question. The order of the responders will be: Manny, you're up first. Elizabeth, you're up second. Stacy, you will be third. And Ryan, you'll be fourth, but not least. The question is, considering local environmental issues, such as Mohawk Tannery, what are your priorities with regards to environmental stewardship and managing natural resources responsibly, such as encouraging partnerships, providing incentives, resources, and accountability? Manny, you are up first, and you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So for me, the Mohawk Tannery is definitely an issue that we've seen rise up, especially for folks who live out in the Fairmont area. So I would want to see if we could start a commission to really study that, and especially in the State House, and make sure that DES is looking into it, because I think one of my biggest fears is that it's out there, and with toxic chemicals, as we've seen in Merrimack and in Litchfield, Pelham, if it gets in our water source, it could have lasting impacts on people's health. And that is the last thing we want anybody to worry about is safe drinking. It's not having safe drinking water. So definitely looking into it and making sure that we don't forget about that. Wait, sorry. Am I answering the question on environmental issues?
You are doing everything correctly, Manny, because I asked the wrong question. So for our audience, I skipped a question, confused everybody, but Manny picked up right on time. So keep going.
All right, want to make sure. The other thing is, I've been endorsed by groups like the Sierra Club and 350 New Hampshire to make sure, because I think climate change is one of the biggest issues that we are going to be facing. So, and also, just environmental shifts. So I don't take anything for granted when it comes to the environment. We only have one planet, and so we cannot take it for granted. So I want to make sure that we, protecting the environment, making sure that people have access to clean water, clean air. That is a priority for me, because I just, like I said, especially for us, we typically are the last to be remembered when it comes to these things. So I want to make sure it's on the forefront of folks that it doesn't just have to happen in communities where the income is the highest. Like it has to happen in all communities, and that we all get heard. So yeah, I will make sure that, you know, going into the next term, that we can start a commission on the tannery.
All right, and just to recap for everybody and to clarify any kind of confusion that I might have caused, we are asking question number 3,
3.
and it is considering local environmental issues. Next up is Elizabeth. Elizabeth, you sound like you're very well prepared for this, so I'm grateful.
Well, thank you, Tom. You know, I believe this land was given to us to take care of for our current and future generations. I have big concerns about plastic, medical trash, and our everyday things that we throw away becoming a threat to our health and our ecosystems. It should always be priority number 1 to preserve our environment. It is not only the individual's responsibility, but big businesses' responsibility too. However, actions to save the environment must be based on proven scientific truths and not politics. This world we live in is an amazing system which has many elements that work together for the good of each element. Man needs to understand how these will all work together, not try to play God is the first step in protecting our environments and presenting a good solution to some of the problems that we have. We here in the United States don't pay much attention to these things, and they really are important. I think we're going to find that out pretty soon, since recycling has been cut off from China and the like. So I will do everything I can to protect the environment here in this country, but it will be based on proven scientific facts. Thank you.
All right, some great thoughts, Elizabeth. Thank you very much. Stacy, you're up.
Well, I see when it comes to environmental issues, I would agree with the previous 2 speakers, especially on establishing a commission for the Mohawk Tannery site. But I also believe in trying to, move the state into a more of a 100% green energy future. Take, for example, like Nashua uses CNG powered buses, and the mayor's driving an electric vehicle, and we're moving to electric vehicles. I support the state looking into initiatives to outfitting all state buildings with solar power, or looking into responsible ways of wind energy. And I know in Nashua here, the mayor was talking about recently during Coffee with the Mayor, they have an energy manager now, and trying to provide low-cost options for energy for Nashua's residents. And I support all those ideas, but I also support trying to encourage people to go for solar, or the state to go for more solar, and be more green with our approach going forward. And we need to move for a more like 100% green economy and future, like right away. We can't wait any longer. The environment can't wait, and we can do something about that now.
All right, thank you for your thoughts, Stacey. I really appreciate it. And now, Ryan, would you like to answer the question?
Yeah, so this is a great question, and climate change should be top of priority for everybody to really pay attention to. We share a responsibility to take care of our environment and our planet, and that's something that a responsibility is shared for all the individuals, but also companies, as the previous speakers have talked about. I mean, New Hampshire and Granite Staters, I think that we lead the way in the nation as far as stewarding our environment. I look at Granite Staters every day choosing to recycle on their own. Even in my apartment complex, people practice sustainable practices with their trash and recycling, and I see that happening throughout the city. And also, as Stacy brought up, our moves towards electric and green energy is something that's very important as we start to plan for the future ahead for not only this generation, for the generation after us and the generation after them. So climate change is critically important for us to address and continue to address in everything that we do. I think first we should look at the Mohawk Tannery as an example of why we need to have a very active policy discussion with businesses and figuring out how can we mitigate those types of issues. For the listeners or the viewers of this, the Mohawk Tannery is a site that has a lot of chemical toxic sludge that's now going to be kind of condemned in a bit, and kind of figuring out what to do with it. And so those are issues that affect all of us. And at a statewide level, it's a responsibility of the state legislators to make sure that we have these policy discussions to make sure that sites like the Mohawk Tannery don't continue to happen in the state of New Hampshire. I also read an article from the union leader about how the drought is showing some of the trash and the misuse of the Merrimack River in Manchester, and how it's revealing some of our inequities as far as how we deal with our trash just throughout the state. So in overall, our ability to affect climate change has been clear through the science. Human beings are affecting the climate in ways that we don't even understand and continue to learn about. So I think as legislators, it's our responsibility to use that science and use that awareness to continue to create sustainable practices for businesses, move forward towards clean energy, while also finding a balance of some of the already available energy resources that we use today.
All right, some great answers, some very impressive perspectives. I appreciate your comments on the drought, particularly, Ryan. We got a little preview of that 2 years ago. We drained the Nashua River because we were working on changes to the flow over by where Margaritas is. We found a lot of little pieces of history that we didn't know were in there. And so that just goes to show how important environmental stewardship is going to be. So I'm going to circle back to the question that I missed. This is going to be question number 2. The order is going to be Ryan first, and then Manny second. Elizabeth will be third, and then Stacy will be fourth. And the question is, what are the responsibilities of the state in protecting civil liberties? And name an area you have personal experience with where you feel uniquely able to represent your constituents. Ryan?
Right. So this is one of the, I was looking forward to answering this question because I believe that it's our role as state legislators to protect our civil liberties. That's the reason why our state constitution was drafted and formed, and that's the reason why our United States Constitution was drafted and formed. Those Bill of Rights and those amendments at the state and federal level are what protect our liberties and what make us fundamentally American. And so it's the role of all of us as state legislators to make sure that those liberties are protected for all citizens and for all people who are American citizens. And so it's very important and fundamentally important to make sure that all of our citizens not only know the Constitution, but also are familiar with the state constitution as well, which often gets overlooked. As far as how I can represent constituents very uniquely, as I mentioned in college, I helped to raise over $50,000 for families in transition as a part of my junior project. And that was an initiative that moved forward because, as most of the viewers may know, families in transition directly impacts those who are dealing with homelessness, are dealing with a housing crisis. And that's something that's particularly important for me because I evacuated due to Hurricane Katrina. So for about 6 to 9 months, I was technically homeless. We didn't have an address. We lived in and out of vehicles with my family. And so housing was very important to me to make sure that people had somewhere to sleep and had a shelter over their head. And that's the reason why I pointed my efforts towards raising that much money towards those kind of efforts. And so as far as representing these constituents and representing Nashua's interest, the housing crisis is something that affects our community. Also, I was recently endorsed by Revive Recovery Center, which is a community-led response to substance misuse. That's another big community issue that affects not only the Granite State, but America as a whole. Opioids and alcohol and any type of substance misuse affects us as a nation. And so pointing those efforts and making sure that we get work done to raise money, raise awareness, and raise efforts towards these types of noble causes is exactly what I'll do as a state representative for our citizens of Nashua Ward 4, and exactly what I'll do for all of the challenges that our community faces. Thank you.
All right, that's a great answer. Thank you very much. So inspiring. I forgot to keep an eye on my notes. So the next question, or the next person to answer is going to be
Me.
Manny. sorry, public.
Gotcha.
Manny
Well,
is our next speaker. Go ahead, Manny.
so on civil liberties, I've supported causes such as making sure that we protect the right to vote for all folks. And, criminal justice is something that is at the tip of my mind when I think of making sure we protect our civil liberties, because everyone deserves a right, to an attorney. Everyone deserves a right to due process. So these are a few places where I think, in terms of criminal justice and voting rights, actually, as soon as one of the bills I co-sponsored that got signed into law is that as soon as someone has served their sentence and is coming back into society and is trying to, get back into things, is making sure that they know what their voting rights are, that they are, once they finish their sentence, that they are allowed the right to vote again, which is something that I think is overlooked at times. That I think, so I think, I want to make sure that folks, if they are trying to come back and be like members of society and trying to give back, that they know how they can elect, their next state representative, like people like us. So I think that's one of the bills that I'm excited that actually got through. Another issue that I want to make sure gets addressed with civil liberties and making sure everyone has representation is immigrants' rights. Is making sure that folks that folks don't get detained by our own government, by people like ICE. So making sure that people, quote unquote, know their rights before they're improperly detained, especially in a community where most of, we have a high rate of immigrants in our community. Most of our family members live with mixed status families, and for us, family separation is not okay. It never has been okay, and we want to make sure that that folks here know their rights regardless of their citizenship. And finally, when it comes to making sure that the freedom of speech is protected, I want to make sure that is something that is upheld here in our state, regardless. I mean, and it's funny because, when you think about freedom of speech, most people don't think of like the ballot selfie, which is something that, one of our own members of Nashua had a right to defend. And it's a voice that he wanted to take, was to let people know who he was voting for. And, it's allowed, and you can do that here in our state. So, yeah, I want to make sure that, we protect our civil liberties here in New Hampshire, and especially in our ward. And I'll continue to do so here in Concord if I'm reelected.
All right, thank you very much, Manny. Elizabeth, you'd like to take this answer on?
Thank you, Tom. As I said before, I consider myself a conservative constitutionalist, and I think the state has a responsibility for ensuring the rights given to us by the federal and state constitutions: freedom of speech, religion, voting, peaceful assembly, to own property, and to bear arms. These are rights guaranteed by the United States Constitution. During the shutdown of the economy in the states, many of our rights have been violated. Attending church by limiting the number who can attend. What is the difference between 6 or 10 individuals congregating? All it takes is one person to infect another. That violates our right to peaceful assembly. Small businesses had their right to do business closed down. Closing restaurants was very wrong. Not being able to go to the beach was illogical. That just didn't make any sense to me, where you're out in the open. To be able to move around our community and participate in our usual activities was truly against our freedoms. I felt like I was in jail for 6 months here. I live alone and not much company, and I had a tough time amusing myself all the time. The governor should not have shut down this economy. He now has to deal with money deficiencies, higher drugs, alcohol, suicide, and mental health problems. The trade-offs might not seem to be more beneficial than health problems created by closing down the state economy. it's more important to protect our rights as individuals. You can't please all the people all the time, but you must keep true to the freedoms that our Constitution provides for us. I think that the governor was not very smart in what he did. $500 million deficit a couple of months ago, I heard. I don't know how he's going to make that up, but I tell you, send me to Concord and I'll be guaranteeing it won't be through your property tax. Thank you.
Woo! Definitely not going to follow the governor's lead on everything, Elizabeth. I appreciate your feedback. Stacy, would you like to take the question? It's regarding civil liberties and your own particular experiences.
Yes. Well, I personally believe in protecting our civil liberties. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Someone like me has a unique perspective. I do come from a background where I had been in trouble, and people know I have felonies, and the state law has, is very confusing, and so we need to make sure that people know what their rights are, and we need to be able to give people second chances, because some people like myself, I have a lot to offer the community, and sometimes people of different backgrounds are turned away. They're turned away because of felonies. They're turned away because of systemic racism issues and whatnot. And so I believe it is essential to protect our civil liberties and our constitutional rights. One of the other areas that I also see as a personal area where I have connection to with my constituents is in our ward. One thing that we overlook is that there's a growing homelessness situation, and they have rights too. I've been homeless up until about July of last year. I spent a year in motels, and then when I was 18, I spent a summer of homelessness in Manchester, New Hampshire in 2004. So one of my high priorities as a candidate for state rep, and as someone who believes they will get elected as a state rep, is to take care of the rights of those who are typically forgotten about, or reversing some of our systemic racism issues, and protecting our rights to keep and bear arms, but most importantly, protecting the rights of those that are sometimes forgotten about, and those are our homeless citizens. They have rights too, and they deserve to get a second chance at the pie, if you will.
All right, very interesting answers, everybody. I appreciate your candor and your intentions in trying to support Ward 4. There's a lot of things going on in these neighborhoods. There's a lot of different perspectives of what the needs are and what the priorities are and what the crises are. So it's definitely interesting. Got a group of very, very unique individuals here looking just to serve the community by representing them. So I thought maybe I'd go in the right order this time and go with question number 4. These questions are 2 minutes each. Stacy, you're going to be the first person to answer. Ryan, you're going to be the second, and then it'll be Manny, and it'll be Elizabeth. And so, Stacy, your question is, how do you plan to exercise your responsibility to represent your constituents when elected? Do you have a communications or outreach plan? And how do you plan to keep constituents up to date with current legislative issues that are relevant to them? Stacy, you're going to be starting, and you're on mute.
Well, I plan to exercise my responsibilities as a state representative responsibly, and I plan to be kind of aggressive at the types of legislation that I file, and right off the bat. But as far as how would do I have a plan on keeping in contact with them? Yes, I do. I have a plan to use my podcast to keep in touch with them, use my Facebook to keep in touch with them. And as times get safer, I wish to be able to have more public forums and maybe even gather the other representatives in the ward together, and we can, have, you know, forums with the citizens to keep them up to date as to what's going on in the state, different things that we're doing, and their ideas and their input, because the best way to represent the people of our state or this district is to listen to what they want, because I plan on voting based on what the citizens inform me that they want. I mean, yes, I have my own personal beliefs, and sometimes that might abut, but my belief is that we need to gather as much information from our constituents as possible in order to make the best decisions.
All right, thank you very much, Stacy. Next up, we have Ryan, if you'd like to answer this question.
Yeah, so how I plan on actually doing my responsibilities as a state representative is a multi-point. So as far as reaching out to the constituents and keeping them updated on everything that's happening in the State House, for those of you who may know and those of you not, if you go to electryanterrell.com, there are voter resources and updates from my campaign. That's where you'll also find a lot of the updates on the legislative process and everything that's happening at the State House if I'm elected. There'll be links there where I'll write a weekly summary of everything that happens at the State House and how it relates to our Ward 4 constituents, to make sure that they're getting a summarized message on what laws and legislation has moved forward and how it can affect our communities. Most importantly, there'll be an active communication channel through all of my social media channels. Our Facebook page is electryanterrell.com. You can also see the Elect Ryan Terrell Facebook, so where you can keep in touch with all the campaign activities. And we maintain an active newsletter for all people who would like to see not only my campaign activities, but also just keep in touch with all of the things that we're moving from a public and private partnership relationship perspective. The other most important part of my campaign, as far as doing my responsibility as a state representative, is my endorsement from Governor Sununu. So that's particularly important to me, and I'm honored that I got that endorsement, because it means that Nashua Ward 4 would have a supported voice in the State House and have a direct channel to the governor to make sure that the issues that our constituents were needing to be addressed got to the governor's ear in a prompt fashion, so that we were no longer forgotten in the State House. That's going to be a critical relationship as we start to move a path forward for Nashua, and especially as Nashua continues to grow. And then the other thing about my availability and reaching out to constituents is being overly communicative. So my contact information is on my website and my Facebook page. I have an office right on downtown Main Street in the old TD Bank building on the second floor, above the Trump Victory office, where constituents can come throughout any time to come and meet with me and make sure that they can talk to me one-on-one as far as we're relating with social distancing and masking in place. And so being overly communicative and available to all of the constituents in the community is how I plan on making sure that my responsibilities are met as a state representative, but most importantly, how they know what I'm doing on their behalf in the State House if I'm elected.
All right, very good to know. I appreciate all that information, Ryan. Next in line is Elizabeth.
Thank you, Tom.
I'm sorry. Elizabeth, you can take this if you want, but I actually skipped over Manny, but let's go with Elizabeth for now, and I'll switch the order in the next questions.
What?
I like to stay unpredictable. I actually swapped you and Manny, but that's okay. Move forward.
I know, Tom.
It's just me.
No, you didn't. I think I'm supposed to be after me. Oh, well, I don't know. What
I
am
made a
gonna do?
mess. It's not your fault. You're a victim.
You're
Manny,
trying to throw me
victim.
off, Tom. So am I to speak or no?
You are to speak.
Oh, Okay. To keep our constituents informed, I will set up a Facebook page for Ward 4 to inform them about what's going on in Concord and to keep it up to date. I'll hold Zoom meetings to give our citizens an opportunity to express their concerns and opinions. And I will attend Alderman meetings so people can get to know me and allow them to speak to me personally. Listening and communicating will be priority number one, not only for those who live below the river, but those who live above the river too. Thank you.
All right, Manny, I suppose grudgingly it should be your turn to answer this question.
I appreciate that, Tom.
Sorry about that.
So in the past, when I first ran for office in 2018, I knocked on many doors, many doors. And even before then, I know for me, I've always talked to a lot of the people in Ward 4 since I've moved here, just I wanted to hear frankly from them, like, what do you guys think? Like, what are the issues you're worried about? And, one of the times I heard was one time I had a 90-year-old veteran who told me who lived on, I forgot, right off West Hollow Street, who told me, well, one of the issues I have is this, I'm worried about gun violence on our streets. And I was like, that was not what I was expecting to hear, but I was like, all right, cool. Well, it's something I'm going to take on and try to do something about. But that's how, we typically get that information of what really keeps you up at night. What are the things that you worry about from your state? So, it's unfortunate that in 2020, we can't do that. We can't go around knocking on people's doors. So for me, I've just had to make a lot of phone calls. I've had to talk to a lot of people. I've had to try to, demystify the process of what voting looks like this year. And I think for me, I try to hold up my Facebook profile page. Constituents can always reach me at my cell phone, as it's listed on the state website. But it's out there with 714-742-9527. I know it's fast, but literally it is everywhere. If you look me up, you'll find my cell phone, find my email address. I get constant emails from folks asking me things on issues, whether it's reopening of New Hampshire, things like making you have questions on rail, questions on anything, and I'm always happy to answer them, tell them how I feel and what I think that the community is feeling. So I always try to stay as available to folks as possible, because I think it's important to me. I got a lot of questions earlier in the year about employment security. So trying to connect folks to the Employment Security Office up in Concord and trying to make sure people get their unemployment benefits. So, I think I want to be as proactive as possible, and I will try to continue to be as proactive as possible for folks.
All right. Again, some great answers. I would expect nothing less from this group. And just some additional invitations. As somebody who's currently elected, you're all welcome to use Ward for Word for any kind of announcements. That was one of the platforms that we used to announce this particular event. It is not a political group. It's more of a community events and what's going on in Ward 4 kind of forum. But if you're making an announcement, especially the state legislature, of something that you want people to be aware of, or something that you think is important for people to participate in, such as a hearing or something along those lines, feel free to post it. Give me a heads up, and I will put I'll make it possible to lock the comments. I am working with some community members on developing a political forum as well, which would allow for moderated constituent feedback, so that when we have issues like that and we're not exactly sure where to turn or what the community input is going to be, we can come up with a format where you can collect that information without, the people who are providing the answers starting to snipe at each other. Because what I found as a politician personally is the people in the room aren't just looking at you, they're looking at each other, and the person answering the question after the person before them tends to try to rebut a position they don't agree with. So social media particularly can get a little bit difficult. In addition to that, you're all also welcome to come to Coffee with the Mayor. We have an agreement between us that if he's going to come to my ward, then it's definitely welcome. He's definitely welcome. But he also has to make sure that our constituents and our representatives get to speak too. And it's a pretty regular thing for state level politicians to come and kind of share what they're working on, current events, things that might matter to people, and get that kind of in-person feedback. And I know we're all pretty worn out with the virtual everything and the social distancing. But these times are going to change, and I'm looking forward to next summer where we're definitely going to be able to get back together, in the same kind of room. And that'll be an opportunity for those of you who are elected to kind of connect with people directly and get that input. So I just wanted to make sure you guys were available. Had at least a personal invite to all of that, just because sometimes people might forget to do it. Also, you're welcome to walk in parades. We always have a really, really sparse representation of politicians from the state level in our parades, but you're all welcome to walk in the parade with the Board of Aldermen as state representatives. And then finally, I'm personally offering to all of you a local politician hat if you are elected, because I think it's important to have some kind of visible sign. All of the other politicians that I've talked to have decided to decline my offer of a sash, but a hat is something that is current enough that people can kind of identify with it and understand, the significance of it, while not necessarily drawing too much attention to yourself. So I just figured I'd take this opportunity to invite you to those different opportunities. Getting back on track, we have question number 5. This is a 2 minutes each question, but we're actually doing really well on time. So if you guys want to take an extra minute, I'm not going to begrudge it to you. The order of this is going to be Ryan, Stacy, Manny, Elizabeth. I screwed up the order last time, so I'm trying to give Manny his day. The question is, what are the unique strengths and perspectives that you see in your constituents that will help you best succeed as a legislator? This can be local resources, advocacy groups, nonprofits, business partnerships, or inspiring challenges your neighbors have faced. So starting us out is going to be Ryan.
Yeah, I was excited to get this question because Nashua has really a great community, and especially in Ward 4. One of the things that this question made me think of was first the strength of the diversity of our ward. When you look at our district and when you look at our ward, we have people from all shapes of walks in life and backgrounds who uniquely come together and make this very unique district what it is. Nashua is consistently ranked as one of the best places to live in New Hampshire. And I truly think it's because of that diverse fabric of individuals that live here that make it that way. Another thing that we do really well, particularly well in Nashua Ward 4, is coming together in a community way to raise the tide for all ships and do better for everyone in the community. An example of that is what I mentioned when I was sponsored by Revive Recovery Center. That's an organization right here in Nashua Ward 4 across from the Southern New Hampshire Medical Center. And what they do is they do community-led, peer-resourced recovery from substance misuse disorder. They make sure that those who are trying to recover are paired with substance misuse recovery coaches and paired with people like the Nashua Police and other public and private sector relationships within Nashua Ward 4 for people to get back on their feet and move towards a road to recovery. Those types of community-driven, people-led, peer resource-based initiatives is intrinsically New Hampshire, and you can find those resources here in Nashua Ward 4 throughout our community. Another example is our Nashua Mental Health Center. That's another great resource for those who are struggling with mental health issues or any types of issues where they need resources from the community. Another great example of how our community comes together in a community way is Harbor Homes and Harbor Care. I live right here in downtown Nashua, and you can see what they do in our community to impact those who are impacted by homelessness or trying to make sure that they have access to health resources and services for those who may not be able to afford it in other settings. And so these are examples that are right here in our community that can be duplicated at a statewide level and can be used as examples of how communities can come together to raise a tide for all ships.
All right, some great answers. One thing I never get tired about is hearing about all the great work being done in Ward 4 and all the people that are doing it. Stacy, you are up. It is your opportunity to answer this.
Yes.
Things that inspire you, and take it away.
Well, what inspires me is what inspires me to run is the citizens, the unique needs that we face, and I am faced by many of those unique situations, and such as I'm affected by mental illness, and I have a unique connection with my constituents that also have mental illness. Um, I would have to disagree, and I've always disagreed with people that suggest community council or Greater Nashua or Harbor Homes are doing the jobs that that we need. I don't go to them anymore because they don't provide the help that they need, the people need. One organization that I sit on their board of directors and that I support very much is Hearts Peer Support Center. They are in downtown, right off of Pine Street Extension. They are a peer support organization, and they have peer respite. And I draw a lot of inspiration and strength from my peers there. I go there for peer support, and I also go there to help with the administrative piece. And soon I may even step down from the board to become an employee of the respite center. And there are a lot of great organizations doing a lot of great stuff in this community. But the places that are providing mental health services to consumers of those services are failing us. And I feel like they could step up to the plate a little bit better, but I support organizations like the Nashua Soup Kitchen, Hearts Peer Support Center, like I mentioned, the Salvation Army, the organizations that are right on the front lines, providing the food to the people and providing assistance to people. That's where I draw my strength and my inspiration from them. And those are the organizations that I support because I see them doing the most in the community to help.
All right, and we certainly have an abundance of diverse and different programs doing different things in this community. Mr. Espitia, I believe I owe you a turn.
Oh, good, man. So for me, I've built really great relationships since I've moved here, since I've lived here. I previously did constituent services for the mayor of Nashua, Jim Donchis. So part of me, like, I've had a lot of experience with organizations like the Nashua PAL, Police Athletic League, the Boys and Girls Club, which are two pillars of our community. I've worked with the Nashua Soup Kitchen. Michael Renke is doing an amazing job over there. For me, like, I can always talk to any downtown business, and I always have their ear. Like, whatever they need, I'm always going to advocate for them. And making sure that they, because it's tough. It's tough to be a business on Main Street right now. So extending out that outdoor seating was a big plus for a lot of these businesses. But I think it's been tough. The other thing that I think I bring to the table here is being a son of immigrants, and being a Spanish speaker, and being a Latino in a ward that is about 30% Hispanic Latino. We only have 2 Hispanic Latinos in the entire state house out of 400, which is not representative at all of what our state looks like. And so for me, especially in a community like this, I think having that representation, having somebody who speaks Spanish to you, when so many of these community members that is the only language they speak, is important. So I want to continue being that voice for them, being a voice for everybody in this community, because to me, it's just, it's too important. And it's especially when you look at it, there are, like I said, even though it seems like there's 400 of us, so how are we ever going to get heard? Our voice does matter with every single vote. So that's it. Thanks.
All right, Manny, I'm throwing in an unprovoked, spontaneous question for you because I need you to represent me. Can you tell our audience what the difference is between Hispanic and Latino for my own personal needs?
So I'm not a sociologist or tell you the full like definition, but I know that Hispanic really is more encompasses more of the of like of Spanish, so like of Spanish descent as well. So people like Tom, and then people like Hispanic is more, or sorry, Latino is more of the Latin American, so folks who are from like all the way down in Chile all the way up to like Mexico. So
Yes, and I am proud to be Hispanic.
Mhm.
I cannot claim to be Latino, but that seems to get constantly confused in the newspaper. So I just thought I would take that chance to help myself. Elizabeth, would you like to bring us home on this question?
Well, I hope I can bring you home. When I moved to Nashua 36, 37 years ago, we never saw people hanging around, say, the library with nothing to do during the day, or these people who are standing on the side of the road, like on Lake Street or over here by the mall, asking for money. And it really has saddened me that we have come to this point where we need all these services. I truly believe that the best services come from citizens helping other citizens, that we rely too much on the government to take care of these problems. But it's most rewarding when you help somebody who needs help, maybe with a drug problem or alcohol problem or whatever, or homeless. And thank you for listing all those places that we could go for help, because that would help me quite a bit. It's I've never had the need for assistance like that, so it's hard for me to understand. But I do have a lot of empathy that, particularly with the mental health, the murders that we've had in schools, districts, really bothers me. The fact that these children even have people that are helping them, psychologists and whatever, but yet they seem to slip through the crack and they don't get the type of real help that they need. So, and like I say, I think it's wonderful that there are so many agencies in this city that are there to help people if they only ask. When I see somebody on the side of the road begging for money or food, I say to them, look, the Salvation Army is right down the road. They'll take care of you. Go down there. But, they don't seem to think of that. So you wonder if they really need the help or not. But it is sad, but I feel a little more difficulty associated with this problem because that I've had a good job, I've had a good education, I've got a home and a car. So sometimes it's a little hard for me to think about, well, why can't you do that? I've done that. I've been able to take care of myself all by myself. So you'll have to forgive me. I'm a little short on this answer for this one, but it comes from the heart that we definitely need people helping people and not the government.
Well, I think it's a very humble person who can admit any kind of opportunities to learn. And as to the rest of the resources that were put out, I think of a past soup kitchen manager, Doug, who used to say, I get by with a little bit of help with my friends, and there's a lot of friends helping in Ward 4. So, sometimes
That's obvious
from
from previous.
just like a nice meal with somebody to kind of pick them up. Sometimes they need help with, ongoing problems that, Hearts or Revive might be able to help out with. So we got the solutions here in Nashua if people can find them. And I think it's very inspiring to people in their moments of need. So before we do our final question, I'm going to go rogue again and ask everybody the most controversial political career ending in Nashua question I can think of. And I just want to inform our audience here, none of them have been previously prepared for this. So you get 5 seconds to think of this question, or as long as the person in front of you has to answer it. And the question is, who makes the best pizza in Nashua? Starting with you, Manny. Don't stop. Come on.
I like Courthouse, but Nashua's good. Nashua has a pizza, and
We get one answer. Courthouse it was. Thank you.
Right.
Ryan, you're up next.
I'll have to go with Espresso Pizza. They sponsored my fundraiser, and they make a great pie, and the owner is a great guy. So I'll say Espresso Pizza right on Main Street.
Wow, nobody catches you off guard. All right. Elizabeth. What is your
Well,
favorite
I
pizza in
love
the city?
the spinach and feta pizza at Olivia's on 101 on Amherst Street. And they haven't given me any money for saying this for them. But they really do make a good pizza, and Nashua has loved them for a long time.
And Stacy,
I'm going to have to agree with Ryan. Espressos on Main Street is one great place. And I know the owner there as well, and he's an awesome gentleman. And so I have to agree with Ryan.
now, of course, the experienced politician would have answered the best pizza in the city is made by the pizza makers. But all right, you're just out there trying to represent people and speak truth.
Tom, what's your favorite pizza?
The pizza that somebody gives me, which is gluten-free, becoming extremely difficult to find. All right, so question number 7. The order of this one is going to be Elizabeth, Ryan, Stacy, and then Manny. And the question is, what state funding priorities do you see as most deserving of your attention and why? Such as education, police, fire, health and human services, environmental, stewardship, revenue collection services. And this isn't meant to pit those against each other, because I don't know how I keep walking into this police versus fire thing, but you should never pit them against each other. This is more a question of where is your passion? Where do you see need? Where's your focus? So Elizabeth, if you'd like to start us off.
Well, thank you, Tom. It will be no surprise to people who know me that education is my passion. I also think that the police and mental health issues are my priorities for funding. We need well-educated citizens, ones that are interested and involved in our society. Every penny spent on education is well worth it, as long as we get real results. However, just throwing money at education does not work. Every year, the school budget goes up from the year before. The Board of Ed has never decreased the budget from the previous year. I do not think we're getting the benefit of this amount of money we spend on education in this city. We cannot keep throwing money at education. It is not working. We need to try something else. Every child deserves to have a good education. They should be able to read at 3rd grade level when they get out of 3rd grade. And this is kind of hard to push on parents. They don't like to have the kids held back, but I truly believe that that is one solution. The money we spend for police is an important expenditure. They keep us safe from external and internal harm as promised by the federal government and our Constitution. They put their lives in potential trouble every day for you and me. They truly are our heroes and deserve our respect and support. I believe we have the finest police department in the state, and I would venture to guess in our country. My third funding item is mental health. This is an issue we have ignored in this country for years. It is not guns or knives that kill people. It is the person behind these items that cause the deaths. Both items can be used for good or bad, depending on the people who are behind them. People who kill or harm others have not been trained in how to deal with their anger and frustrations. We put them on drugs which have no good effect on their overall health and complicate the problem with these people. I think we need to spend more money on mental health. I really do, to help these people be able to cope with their lives and not kill others. Thank you, Tom.
All right, thank you very much, Elizabeth. Ryan, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, so I would certainly agree that we need a big focus on mental health services. I think that along with the economic effects we've seen from COVID-19, I think that people's mental health have certainly been affected in ways that we'll continue to see even in the months and years to follow. Being alone, being isolated, being quarantined is not healthy for people's mental health, especially those who are already struggling with mental health ailments who need the community support to be able to be functioning adults and be functioning citizens and be happy and be healthy. So I think that mental health is something that should be the top priority coming off of this COVID-19 pandemic, to make sure that all of our citizens are healthy and moving forward together. The other big thing is education, as Elizabeth talked about. Education is a fundamental of building a strong citizenship and a strong state, especially early developmental education. Those early years between pre-K and about third grade are pivotal years for our Granite Staters to learn and build and be strong, producing individuals when they graduate high school. So making sure that we have educational school choice, whether it's a traditional public school or a charter school, will be extremely important as parents are figuring out what learning methodologies work best for their students. I think also what we've shown from coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic, is that students will adapt in different ways in different learning environments. And so making sure that the families have access to school choice in all different forms is critically important for the state to fund. And then lastly, not that any priority is more or less important and how it affects other individuals, but for me particularly, a place where the state should be looking to make sure that funding goes is for veteran services. Veterans are people that put their life on the line for this country and made sure that we have our civil liberties protected and have the right to run elections and vote and protect our democracy. Anything we can do to continue to help veterans and raise the bar for them and make life better for them in the Granite State is something that the state should point their interest towards and point funding towards, as we continue to do and as we've continued to help veterans throughout the Granite State.
Some very impressive answers so far, guys. Keep up the great work. Stacy, you're up next.
Well, my priorities as far as where would I put you know, a lot of funding towards is the alternative programs that support my fellow peers in mental health recovery, such as Hearts. I would, you know, have a high focus on the like the place that Ryan was talking about, Revive, where they provide substance abuse, peer support recovery services. And I think they would be places that I would support highly. Also, education. My personal story takes me to when I was I first arrived on the scene at Elm Street Middle School. I couldn't read, and I learned to read at Elm Street Middle School. That shouldn't have been the case. My sister was reading, you know, when she was much, much younger, and so was my brother, who's younger than I am. I would put a lot of funding into special education and to alternative forms of learning, because I have a friend in the district here. Her son has a problem, you know, educating in the classroom, but he actually finds the remote learning to be more beneficial. So I think going forward, we need to rethink some of our education methods. Maybe sometimes public education, but at home, through Zoom or other online methods, we should be utilizing. But yeah, my priorities include the mentally ill, education, and trying to figure out solutions for our homeless population.
All right. Well, this is some tough acts to follow over here, Manny, but I think it's up to you.
So for me, you know, I think education has always been a top priority. No offense, you know, fire, police, or others. I think, you know, and education is definitely not something that's straightforward. You know, there is no one size fits all that works for education. I think, you know, especially here where we have a lot of students who come from different backgrounds, who come from some from immigrant backgrounds. So, Spanish may not be the first, or English may not be the first language spoken in their household, and I should not assume Spanish because there are other immigrant groups in our state, in our city especially. But English may not be their first language, so we find that ELL students, we have to make sure that we work hard to help them catch up, so to speak. And then one of the other big issues that we've seen in our state is making sure, like everyone has said, mental health services are covered, because it's like we've said, the COVID pandemic has made it really hard for folks. It's definitely kept folks in isolation, and we can't, I think I'm proud to say I see my therapist once a week, because these are tough times, and doing everything is it's tough to make sure that we can that we hold that mental fortitude, and so I think that's one of the things that we have to make sure that our state is covering. But I think overall our state needs to do a better job, and it might not be in this next budget, but we have to work harder to make sure that we don't downshift to municipalities, because that is forcing people like yourself, Tom, to have to deal with some tough decisions on the local level. So downshifting has always been a priority for me since I've entered the state house in 2018, but I want to make sure we continue that. Like I said, 2020 may not be the year, or sorry, 2021 may not be the year for that, but it's something that we cannot just keep punting on.
All right. Well, I really appreciate those answers, especially, Manny, your comments regarding mental health. Personally, everybody knows I'm surrounded by therapists all day, and it's probably still not working out. So it's definitely a major issue in our community, as our education and substance misuse. So I really appreciate the depth of insight that everybody has been sharing this evening. I think you've all been doing a really good job of articulating positions that are both unique and also extremely important. Ward 4 is a very diverse place, as Elizabeth alluded to. Some people are north of the river, some people are south, some people have a certain kind of experience, some people prefer peers, some people prefer organizations. There's just a lot of different needs in the community, and a lot of people that are both working to meet those needs and people that are looking to connect with others. So it really is an honor to represent Ward 4 in the city level, and I think it will be an honor for me to be represented by any of you in the upcoming legislative year. So I'm looking forward to that, and I really appreciate all of you reaching out and connecting with me so that we could have this forum and make this work. We were able to do this in a non-tribal fashion in a country that is very divided right now. We're all living in Ward 4. We're all, probably drinking the same water. We're all experiencing the same things. So I appreciate the time that everybody put into coming out here. And I want to give you all the last word. So I want to give you some opportunities for final thoughts. So our last question is really just going to be, what are your final thoughts? You can make your final pitch to the voters to elect you. You can revisit some areas where you think you maybe missed the talking point or wanted to clarify something. What are your final thoughts? We're going to start with Manny.
So, I started off by saying that one of my top priorities is workers' rights and making sure that people that feel safe during this pandemic. It always, before I even joined the legislature, making sure workers were safe has always been a top priority for me. Also making sure that workers get paid an adequate wage. And right now, $7.25 is just not cutting it for our people. So raising the minimum wage is something that I will keep fighting for. Because like I said, $7.25 is just not good enough. A paid and family medical insurance program that works for all, and also making sure that workers feel, if they feel like that they're unsafe at their workplace, that whether it's from harassment, whether it's from the pandemic, from anything, making sure that, because most of the time we're spending more time in our workplace than we are our actual, our own homes. So making sure that that's a comfortable place is important for people. And so as I sit on the labor committee, that's something I want to continue to do. And I want to continue to make sure that I can be a voice for everyone who lives in Ward 4. I stress that, it is important for people to have, immigrants to have a voice in Concord, but I also think it's important to make sure that all people have a voice in Concord. So I will try to be that voice for folks, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent. I want to be that person. So although I can't knock on your door this year, I want to make sure that if you have any concerns, you can always feel free to reach me through my Facebook, through my phone, through my email, whatever it is. I just want to be as present as I can for the folks here.
All right, some great final thoughts, Manny. Ryan?
Yeah, thank you, Tom, for getting everybody together and having this forum. Thank you to Stacy, Elizabeth, and Manny for participating and sharing some ideas. It was great to talk to everybody. This election, as there's a lot on the line, and I think that we as a state have a lot of work to do to make sure that we bring back our nation-leading economy. For me, a vote for Ryan Terrell is a vote for educational school choice for all K through 12 children. It's a vote for making sure that we deliver a voluntary paid family leave program, bringing more government online, like car registrations, and increasing the amount of accessibility to government, especially for our citizens of the National Award 4 that are English second learners, so that we can have more government participation and more access to those communities. And most importantly, it's about preserving the New Hampshire advantage, making sure that I oppose any new taxes or sales or broad-based taxes, working to decrease the property taxes on the individuals living in National Award 4, and also getting our businesses back to work and our employees back to work safely. Before this pandemic, we had a nation-leading economy and a model that the rest of the nation was trying to figure out just how New Hampshire was doing it so well. It was through that local control, public and private sector relationships that the granted state advantage is upheld, and I'll be a state representative that works along with Governor Sununu to make sure that New Hampshire remains the greatest state to live in America. As I mentioned, Nashua consistently ranks as one of the best places to live, and that's because we have a strong, tightly knit community that makes sure that we're taking care of one another, regardless of political party or affiliation or background or creed or race or color. It's important that all of us come together, especially coming off of this COVID-19 pandemic, where all of us have spent so much time away from each other and quarantined and individualized. It's more important than ever to come together to raise a tide for all ships and build that community that's stronger, safer, and cleaner for all to enjoy in Nashua. So vote Ryan Terrell on November 3rd. Visit electryanterrell.com to see voter resources and voter information. Look at Elect Ryan Terrell on Facebook to keep in touch with my campaign. I believe that my business experience, leadership experience, and public and private sector relationships will make me the best candidate to make sure that the best interests of candidates in the constituents in Ward 4 are heard. I was endorsed by the governor. I have endorsements from private and public sector companies. I make sure that I have an active communication with all of those in Nashua Ward 4. I'm a pro-business candidate to make sure that businesses have an environment that they can thrive. And so this is a lot on the line, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 3rd. Vote for Ryan Terrell for state representative. Thank you.
All right, very well said. And Stacy, your final thoughts for the evening.
Yes. Well, first, I'd like to, again, I'd like to thank Tom for having this platform for us tonight. I'd like to thank my fellow candidates for joining together with us. And most importantly, I'd like to personally thank the voters and the citizens of Ward 4 for allowing me to serve them as a selectman, as an election day official, and for voting for me in the primary and getting me until this point. I'm very humbled and thankful for second chance opportunities, and this is a big deal for a second chance. And I want to thank all of the citizens for getting me back to this point. And I look forward to working with any number of the people on this platform tonight if we all get elected. You know, there's only 3 that can get elected. I think all of the candidates running, including the Republican candidates, are all worthy candidates. And, you know, I'm willing to work across party lines, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, to get the issues done, the issues addressed that we need to get addressed. And one of the biggest slogans in our campaign is leaving no one left behind. We all deserve an opportunity and second chances. And so I, Stacy Lawton, ask for your vote again on November 3rd, 2020. And I would be honored to serve as your state representative.
Also, very well said. Elizabeth, the final
Thank you,
thoughts,
Tom.
the final thoughts. Take it away.
My final thoughts, yes. I hope they're not final.
No.
Few more.
This was tonight. That's all.
Look, the only promise I would make to you is that I listen to you and listen to the debate, and then we'll vote in your best interest. I've taken no money from anyone or any special interest group, so I will not be beholden to anyone but you, the citizens. It's time for some It is time for some conservative voices to represent Ward 4. It is time to vote in younger people. I hope that you'll be able to make a different decision this year and help scale back the 35 years of control in this ward. If things aren't working for you, please vote for a new set of ideas that will allow you to be a thoughtful, responsible citizen that don't tell you how to think or control how you are to live. I'm asking for your vote. Please vote for Elizabeth Van Twyver. Send me to Concord to look out for you. And thank you, Tom, for your hard work in getting this forum together. It was a lot of fun.
All right, and I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I appreciate everybody who's watching this. So I will be posting the bios that we have in addition to the finalized video of this. I will make sure that each one of you has access to either the YouTube, which I will have the video hosted on, or if you prefer to just put the links in. Or if you'd like the original video, I can provide a recording of that as well. So you can put it on your own social media channels. Just message me and let me know. And then to those of you in the public, November 3rd is Election Day. You can also get absentee ballots at City Hall. You can get them at the Court Street Theater. Go on to gonational.com, look up elections. All the directions that you need are there. Vote. This is your right and your responsibility and your privilege. Thank you very much.
Good night, Tom.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you and good night.